excited to present our research on the dispersal, status, role, and use of English in countries within cultures outer and expanding circles, excluding Malaysia. Our focus is on two key aspects: the globalizations of English and its role as a lingua franca. First, we explore how English spread through colonization, trade, education, and media, becoming a dominant global language. Then we examine its functions as a common means of communication among people with different native languages, especially in business and education. To gain real-world insights, we conducted interviews with individuals from various countries, analyzing their perspectives on the status and use of English in daily life. Our findings highlight its growing influence, challenges, and the attitudes towards English in different regions.
My name is DZAKRIN, YUSOF. My student ID number is SEC230700186, and I'm covering Outer Circle country, which is Nigeria.
Hello everyone, I am MUQRIEZ FARISH from the EC5E, ID number SEC230700260. Will be presenting on a recent interview I had from an outer English country, which is Singapore. Let's begin, shall we?
Hi, I'm HAIKAL FAQIHULHAQ bin HAFIZULLAH. My ID number is SEC230700303. I'll be representing China as an expanding circle.
I'm MUKTAJAL YACOB with ID number SEC23070035, representing Indonesia, which the expanding circle country.
Assalamualaikum. Hi, I'm AMAL. My ID number is SEC23070133, and I'll be representing Saudi Arabia, which is an expanding country.
This is my interviewee from Indonesia, Sapadina K. She is 21 years old and a university student. Assalamualaikum and a very good day to Ms. Sapadina. First thing first, I would like to say thank you so much for sparing the time to do this interview with me today. So, to my first questions is, how did English first spread to country? What were the major historical influences?
Okay, so thank you for the question. Based on my knowledge, English is actually first spreading in Indonesia, my country, through colonization and also through trade, and also later on from education. And if we look into history, Indonesia was colonized by the Dutch. The Dutch actually did not prioritize English, but after independence of Indonesia, it became important for global communication. So yeah, after independence, Indonesia has spoken English in several regions because because of the globalization. So yeah, English first spread in Indonesia after colonization and through trades and also through educations.
So moving on to my next questions. How has the English language evolved in your country over the years?
Okay, so over the year, English has evolved in my country from like several aspects. Like over time, English has grown in importance, especially in education, business, and technology, and especially in education, to my knowledge, because it's now widely taught in schools and used in international settings. And there's a lot of international activities nowadays in Indonesia.
Right. So what is the current status of the English language in your country? Is it used in formal settings or informal settings?
Okay, so in Indonesia, English is common in formal settings. Um, not I think in formal settings it's really really common, but it's also used in informal settings, like non-formal settings, like many young people in Indonesia, if you know, netizens in social media, they use English a lot. So they kind of like mix of English and in bahasa Indonesia in daily conversations, especially in social media. But most of the time we use formal settings. We use formal English in formal settings like office, university, but not in every region, because not every region in Indonesia is familiar with English.
So, what positive impact have you seen that English creates?
Okay. In my opinion, English really helps Indonesians to access global job opportunities, study abroad, and communicate with people from other countries, especially based on my personal experience. I gained a lot of international friends, including you, because of English. And it also makes learning from international sources too easier. And yeah, I think that's like the positive impact that Indonesians gain from speaking English.
Is there any negative outcomes you have seen English made in your country?
Mm, Okay, I do think that some people in Indonesia worry that English is making younger generations less fluent in Bahasa Indonesia. Like, there's also a gap between those who can speak English very well and those who cannot, and it kind of like affect on the job chances or job opportunities that they will have. But I think most of the time, they worry about, oh, younger generation will be like less fluent in Bahasa Indonesia or the mother language. So yeah, that's kind of like the negative reaction.
So, my next question is, how did you first learn English grammar and what methods were most effective for you?
Okay. Um, I first learned English in school, specifically elementary school. But actually, when I was like so little, when I was around, yeah, in playground, I improved my English a lot through music, movies, and by the time goes, when I grow up and um when I got in middle school, I learned English in social media. So yeah. And I think the hardest part of learning English is to speak.
So, do you use any specific regional variations of English grammar more closely? Like that might differ from formal standard English.
Mm, Hmm. Uh, how is it taught? Yeah, in my school. I think it is taught through, of course, through subjects in school, but most of the time, we learn the grammars through textbooks, and also, at least in my school, we actually struggle learning English speaking naturally, like, because of the, like, there's a lot of textbooks, so we get like really well, we get better in writing and also reading, but in terms of speaking and also listening, we kind of like lack of those aspects. So yeah, English grammar is taught in my school using textbooks a lot, but most of us struggle with speaking naturally. And I think practice outside of school, like chatting online through social media, or you can find more sources outside of school, it will help us a lot.
Right. So, how in your country do people follow British or American English grammar more closely, or is there a mix of both?
Mm, okay. So this one is about like British or American English, right? Okay. So in Indonesia, um, both British and American English is like taught in Indonesian school, but mostly they teach British English, and American English is more common in like cultural or like um informal settings like movies, TV, and social media. So yeah.
So, how is English grammar taught in your school, and what are the most common challenges you face when learn English grammar?
Okay, the most common challenges we face during learning English grammar specifically, it's when we acknowledge that there's a lot of grammars that we have to know. And as I said before, in our schools, most of the time students learn English through textbook, and so we just like don't have much practical session like speaking English, like naturally speaking English. Um, so we just get better at like memorizing the grammar. So I think the most common challenge is when you have to memorize the grammar, but not to practice or like to implement in daily life.
Moving on, are there any specific your native language structures that influence how you use English grammar, leading to common mistakes or unique patterns in speech and writing?
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, I think there's one like specific structure in my native language that influenced my kind of like usage in English. It's when like bahasa Indonesia influences how I speak English sometimes because for example, many Indonesians say like can I borrow your something gitu. When they mean can I use your something? For example, like someone ever said to me like, "Can I borrow your phone?" It actually means like, "Can I use your phone like for a while or for some time?" It's not for like you gotta borrow the phone for like a day. No, no, no. But it means like you want to use for like couple of time. Because in bahasa pinjam means both borrow and also use. So it's kind of like affect on like how we use English gitu. So I think yeah, that's one of the example of how my native language structure influences the usage of English, at least based on my experience.
Think we have finished all the questions and you answer all the questions very well. I'm very feeling grateful for having you today. And once again, I would like to say thank you so much for, spending your time with me to do this interview. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
To summarize our findings on the history of English in Indonesia, our interviewee Safadina K provided valuable insights into how the language spread throughout the country. Unlike nations colonized by English-speaking powers, Indonesia was under Dutch rule, where English was not a priority. However, after gaining independence, the country recognized the importance of English for international trade, diplomacy, and education. This marked a significant shift as English became a key tool for global communication. Today, English is widely used in business hubs, tourism, and educational institutions, reflecting Indonesia's efforts to integrate into the global economy. While historical influences played the role the nation's strategic decision post-independence have solidified English as an essential language in various sectors. Over the years, the English language has significantly evolved in Indonesia, driven by education, economic growth, and technological advancements. In education, English has become a key subject, with private and international schools adopting it as a primary medium of instructions. Universities emphasize English proficiency for research, collaboration, and career advancements. As Indonesia's economy expands, English skills are increasingly valuable in multinational companies, tourism, and business sectors, making it an essential asset for employment. Technology and digital media have also accelerated English learning with access to YouTube, streaming platforms, and online courses. Indonesians are more exposed to English in daily life. Additionally, participation in global conferences, trade agreements, and students' exchange programs has reinforced the importance of English, ensuring Indonesia remains competitive in the international area. The English language in Indonesia is widely used in both formal and informal settings, with its influence growing across different sectors. In formal context, English plays a key role in business, education, government, and tourism. It is commonly used in academic instructions, professional communications, and international collaborations. Many universities and businesses prioritize English proficiency for career advancements and global engagements. In informal setting, English is particularly popular among younger generations who often mix it with Bahasa Indonesia in daily conversations, a phenomenon known as code switching, influenced by social media, entertainment, and global trends. This blending of languages is both practical and expressive. However, English proficiency varies across regions and generations, with urban areas having greater exposure. While English continues to gain importance, challenges such as unequal access to quality English education and reliance on code mixings may impact overall fluency. Nonetheless, its presence in Indonesia society is dynamic and evolving. English has brought numerous positive impacts in Indonesia, opening doors to global opportunities in education, careers, and social connections. One of the key benefits is access to international education. English proficiency allows Indonesians to study abroad, participate in global academic programs, and engage in international research collaborations. Career-wise, it provides a competitive edge, enabling individuals to work in multinational companies, tourism, and global business sectors. Beyond professional growth, English fosters cross-cultural interactions, helping Indonesians form international friendships and build global networks. It also enhances access to global media, knowledge, and digital communities, keeping people informed about international trends on a larger scale. English strengthens Indonesia's global competitiveness by supporting industries that rely on international communications. Overall, it plays a vital role in shaping more connected and globally engaged society. While English brings many benefits, its growing influence in Indonesia also presents certain challenges, particularly regarding language and cultural identity. One major concern is the declining fluency in Bahasa Indonesia, especially among younger generations, with the dominance of English in education, media, and social interactions. Many young Indonesians prefer using English in daily conversations, sometimes struggling with formal Bahasa Indonesia. The trend of code switching, mixing English with Bahasa Indonesia, can lead to an incomplete mastery of both languages. In urban areas, digital communication and social media further reinforce this shift, making Bahasa Indonesia seem less relevant in some academic and professional settings. While English is essential for global opportunities, it's important to balance its use with efforts to preserve and promote Bahasa Indonesia. Maintaining fluency in the national language is crucial for preserving Indonesian cultural heritage and national identity. English grammar learning in Indonesia combines both formal education and informal exposure through digital and cultural media. Our interviewee, Ms. Saparina, first learned English grammar in elementary school through structured lessons focused on sentence structure, tenses, and syntax. Traditional grammar exercise in school provided a strong foundation, while interactive learning methods help reinforce understanding. Beyond the classroom, informal methods like music, movies, and social media play a significant role. Music helps with memorization and sentence structure. Movies improve listening skills and contextual grammar use. And social media encourage casual English communications. This blended approach makes learning more engaging and accessible, especially for younger generations. However, relying solely on informal methods may lead to grammatical errors, particularly in writing. A balanced combination of structured education and immersive exposure is key to mastering English grammar effectively. In Indonesia, English grammar generally follows standard rules, especially in formal settings like education, business, and professional communications. Our interviewee, Ms. Sapadina, shared that her use of English does not significantly differ from formal grammar structures. However, informal speech and writing may exhibit subtle regional variations. Indonesians sometimes incorporate direct translations from Bahasa Indonesia, local expressions, and code switching in casual conversations. Exposure to social media, entertainment, and digital communications also influences grammatical choices. Despite these informal adaptations, structured language instructions and increasing exposure to global media have helped many Indonesians maintain standardized English grammar. While minor variations exist in everyday speech, formal communication generally adheres to standard English rules. In Indonesia, both British and American English influence language use through their impact varies depending on the context. Our interviewee, Ms. Sapadina, noted that British English is primarily used in educational settings. This is reflected in textbooks, standardized tests, and formal instructions, aligning with Indonesia's historical ties to British English. However, American English is more commonly encountered through movies, music, and social media, shaping informal speech and everyday communications. As a result, many Indonesians develop a mixed usage of both variations, sometimes blending British and American grammar, spelling, and vocabulary without realizing it. This flexible approach allows Indonesians to adapt based on the situations, using British English in academic and formal settings, while incorporating American English influences in casual conversations and international business interactions. In Indonesian schools, English grammar is primarily taught through textbooks and focusing on rules, sentence structures, and written exercises. While this method provides a strong theoretical foundation, it often lacks emphasis on practical communication skills. One of the biggest challenges students face is applying grammar in spoken English. Many struggle with confidence, pronunciations, and constructions sentence in real time due to limited speaking practice and fear of making mistakes. Additionally, memorizing grammar rules can be difficult as English follows different syntactic patterns compared to Bahasa Indonesia. This difference makes it harder for students to internalize the rules naturally, especially with limited exposure to conversational English outside the classrooms. To improve learning outcomes, incorporating interactive methods such as speaking exercises, role-playing, and digital learning tools could help bridge the gap between theory and real-world applications, making grammar learning more engaging and effective. The structure of Bahasa Indonesia significantly influences how Indonesians use English grammar, often leading to common mistakes and unique speech patterns. Our interviewee, Ms. Sapadina, pointed out that direct translations from Bahasa Indonesia to English is a frequent challenge, since certain words and sentence structures do not have exact equivalence. This can lead to errors in sentence constructions and word choice. One major difference is that Bahasa Indonesia does not have tenses, making it difficult for learners to correctly apply past, present, and future forms in English. Additionally, Bahasa Indonesia lacks auxiliary verbs, which sometimes results in missing helping verbs in English sentences. Another common issue is incorrect verbs usage, such as confusing borrow and lend due to direct translations. These influences create unique patterns in Indonesia English. While they can cause grammatical errors, understanding these differences can help learners refine their English skills and develop more natural sentence structures. English plays a major role in Indonesia, influencing education, careers, and global connections. It is widely used in business, diplomacy, and digital media, making it essential for success in a globalized world. Although Indonesia was under Dutch rule, English became important after independence as the country engaged with the international community. Schools and universities now emphasize English for academic and professional growth. However, challenges exist. Learning English grammar is difficult to differentiate from Bahasa Indonesia. The mix of British and American English and a textbook focused teaching approach also makes spoken communications harder. More interactive learning methods are needed. While English opens global opportunities, it also affects Bahasa Indonesia. Many young people mix English and Bahasa in daily conversations, which may weaken native language fluency over time. To move forward, Indonesia must balance English proficiency with preserving its national language, ensuring both global competitiveness and cultural identity.
This is my interviewee. His name is Mahfuz Muhammad Val, and he is from Saudi Arabia, which is an expanding country.
Alright. Okay. Assalamualaikum Mahfuz. How are you?
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته brother أمل. الحمد لله بخير. How about you? You're fine
Can
إن
we
شاء الله.
Khabar Nur, Alhamdulillah. Can we start our interview session? Can you please introduce a little bit about yourself?
Yes. السلام عليكم. I am محفوظ محمد فال. I'm from محفوظ محمد فال الأنصاري from Medina. Actually, I came here to Malaysia to further study my master here in UTM. I'm doing my master in energy management. Alhamdulillah, almost finished. I choose Malaysia because I'm married to Malaysian. We met in Medina, and that's why I choose to come to Malaysia. And just to know how to know brother Amal. He is my sister-in-law nephew, so I'm so happy to be introduced by him.
Alhamdulillah, what a small world we live in.
Yeah.
So can we move on to our first question?
Yes.
How did English first spread to your country, and what were the major historical influences in it?
Okay. So far, I'm not 100% sure about it, but more or less, it's because of in historical. Let's say talk about historical part. In Saudi, they used to deal with the UK. Let's say imperator during king at the beginning of the kingdom time. So there were some people who need to speak English to deal with those UK people. On the other hand, the company Aramco of petroleum industry, they established under U.S. government and cooperating with U.S. government and King Saudi government. So the potential to study English were there. I'm talking this about the business part. About the other part is because of Umrah and Hajj, because the many people come to Medina and Mecca, so as English is spoken all worldwide, so that's why the potential to learn English. Yes.
Oh, very interesting, very interesting. Let's move on to the second question. How has the English language evolved in your country over the years?
Okay. Over the years, more or less, for the in the biggest cities like Medina, Mecca, and also like Jeddah, like Riyadh and Dammam, which is industry and tourism cities, and the capital for sure. As we mentioned, to deal with the tourists and also the exports from the overseas. Yes.
Okay. And for the third question, what is the current status of the English in your country, and is it used for the formal and or informal setting or both?
Okay, they actually it's improving in Saudi. Uh, yes, they're using both, as we say. For the official one is when working with the expertise, let's say in companies like Aramco and so on, Sabic and those big industries. And informal way when deal with the tourism or tourists. So need to there is use for both formal and informal. For actually also for government itself when they let's say propose or share what their interests and so on, they will share it in English and Arabic in a place like YouTube, like LinkedIn and so on. So it's used both.
Okay. So the next question is what are the positive impact have you seen that English has created in your country?
Positive, huh?
The positive impacts that the
Oh,
English language has created.
okay. Actually, when for Saudi in general, Saudi community in general, learning English can provide or give a better chance to work. Many businesses now give, especially the one as we said, the tourists. They give a rule or this condition to be hired to know how to speak English, to deal with different let's say people of overseas, and also when speak English, when the people that get to speak or learn English, they get, let's say, better understanding of others by following the news from overseas, so they can get better understanding of others instead of only the local news and so on.
Uh, I see. So any negative outcome that the English have made in your country?
Yes, sure. For everything have pro and cons. So just like the learning English is one of these things. So the cons, let's say about it, to me is not that much. But some people tend to speak English instead of Arabic, and they'll feel the one
Okay.
who don't know how to speak English, they are less. Instead of making the reason of learning English is to communicate with others. No, it's become like if you know how to speak English, you are a knowledgeable person or have knowledge. If you don't, that means you are less, which is not the case. Arabic is the best language for sure, but just we learn English just to know how to communicate with others, not to prefer English over our language. Yes.
I see, I see. So the next question is, how did you first learn English, and what are the methods are the most effective for you?
Yeah. We started learning English in primary school, form 6. So for me is a practice. Practice is the best way to develop the language, starting with the basics and then improve with the grammars and so on, and practice in both way by writing and reading, and also exercising, and then practicing by implementing the language by talking and listening. So as any language need to be practiced and practiced well, so the language will be improved for sure with the time. The more practice, the more you get. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so yeah, practice makes perfect.
Yes, yes.
All right, so move on to the next question. Do you use any specific regional variation of English grammar that might differ from the formal English language?
Okay, for this question, I let's say if this happen when we translate direct Arabic to English, like the use of but, we use it in the state or in the place of however. So this grammar is cause this mistake is common in Arabic. It's just like the way of talking in Arabic is different the way in talking English. So that's when the mistakes happen. And also the tense itself in English is different than Arabic. So sometimes we'll get mixed between the tenses in English. And also when we want to use the same tense in Arabic to translate it to English, sometimes mistakes happen. Yes.
All right. So the next question is: in your country, uh, do your people follow British or American English grammar, or more closely, is there a mix in both of them?
Oh, for sure. About I think 99% are using US, and for them, UK way is funny. They make joke about it. Well, yeah. So and it's also quite difficult as well. So the majority are using US.
All right. So the next question is: how is English grammar taught in your school, and what are the most common challenge you face when learning English grammar?
Well, we been taught the what's called the grammars by let's say by each form have certain grammars to be teach. So to be taught. So by each let's say grade or form, you will get some grammars to develop and to be question about it or be examined to get your outcome. So let's say how is uh, let's say the most challenge is just like the tense as I mentioned, like the difference between past continuous and let's say past simple, simple past, and so on. So this tense is not in Arabic because we don't need to do the tense. We just say the word and it will be understandable is in the past and which past. So we don't need to do this kind of grammars. Yeah.
Understand. So the last questions: are there any specific your native language structure that influence how you use English grammar, leading to a common mistake or unique patterns in speech or writing?
Yeah. For Arabic as a unique language, Arabic have it can play with the order of the sentence. So when we start to do instruction of the word, we can say subject, objective, subject and objective, and then the verb, or the other way around. We can play with the order, and it will be understandable in a certain way. But in English, we need to follow the structures of the building the sentence. Or if you built it by Arabic way, it can be ununderstandable. So this quite a challenge when, especially when I used to write my thesis. It's quite a challenge to write my ideas by English. Because if I write it in Arabic first, then I want to translate it by myself. It's a lot of common mistake, a lot of mistakes actually, or in let's say the verbs and the structure of the language.
All right, understandable. And that's it. That's all for our interview. Thank you for
Yeah,
joining me. Thank you for agreeing with me,
yeah.
Brother Moose.
It's my pleasure to join your interview, and I wish I get some help. Give some help to your interview. Thank you.
You helped very much. Give my
Yeah,
salam to Annabila.
yeah. Inshallah. Okay. Okay.
All
Take care.
right. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
brother. Take care.
Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Let's move on to the first question of our interview. My interviewee responded to it by saying that English first arrived in Saudi Arabia through early trade relations with the UK and the establishment of Aramco under US influence. Business dealings require English proficiency to be used, and particularly in petroleum industry. Additionally, the influx of international pilgrims for Umrah and Hajj create a need for English communication in Mecca and Medina. Let's move on to the second question of our interview session. My interviewee responded to it by saying that English has expanded in major cities such as Riyadh, Jeddah, and Dammam due to the increase of globalization, tourism, and expatriate presence. Its importance has grown in education, business, and government sectors, making it a key tool for international interactions. Let's move on to the third question of our interview session. My interviewee responded to it by saying that English is widely used in both formal and informal settings. It is essential in industries like Aramco and Sabic, and the English is also used in government communication and necessary for interacting with tourists. Social media and online platforms also reinforce the importance of English in their daily life. Let's move on to the fourth question of our interview session. My interviewee responded to it by saying that English provides better job opportunities, particularly in tourism and international business. It also allows Saudis to access global news and improving their cultural understanding and knowledge beyond their local perspective. Let's move on to the next question of our interview session. My interviewee responded to it by saying that the one downside is that some people equate English proficiency with intelligence, making those who don't speak it feel inferior. Additionally, their over-prioritizing English could lead to a decline in Arabic usage and their own cultural identity. Let's move on to the next question. My interviewee responded to it by saying that English education starts in primary school, but practice is the key to mastering the English. And the most effective method is including the reading, writing, listening, and speaking regularly to ensure continuous improvement in learning English. Let's move on to the seventh question. And my interviewee responded to it by saying that some common grammatical errors stem from direct Arabic to English translation, such as using but instead of however and mixing tenses. This difference creates challenge in mastering formal English since Arabic structure is different from the standard English structure. Moving on to the eighth question, my interviewee responded to it by saying that American English dominates in Saudi Arabia with nearly 99% of English speakers using the US style, while British English is often seen as amusing and they also make fun of them sometimes. Moving on to the ninth question of our interview session, and my interviewee responded to it by saying that grammar is taught progressively by grade level, but a major challenge is understanding English tenses as Arabic does not require the same level of grammatical distinction. This also shows how hard Arabic want to master English is the structure is different from standard English. Moving on to the last question, my interviewer responded to it by saying that Arabic allows flexible word order while English follows a strict structure. This led to errors in sentence construction when translating from Arabic to English, especially in writing. My justification for all those 10 questions is English plays a crucial role in Saudi Arabia for business, tourism, and education. While it provides many job opportunities, it also presents challenge in maintaining Arabic language and avoiding linguistic misunderstanding.
Hello, my name is IRFAN, and today I'll be covering varieties of English language. for the country of Nigeria? Hi, my name is DZAKRIN bin Muhammad YUSOF, and today I'll be conducting an interview for Varieties of English Language Assignment. And I'm here with an interviewee from London. You're Nigerian, right, Mr. Leomi?
Yes, yes.
All right. So first of all, thank you so much for taking your time for this interview session. Before we begin, can you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit of your background?
Okay, I'm Naomi. I am 21 years old. I am originally from Nigeria, but I have been living in the UK for 6 years now as an international student. I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. I currently am a master's student at Imperial College in London, studying a master's in applied biosciences and biotechnology. And yeah.
All right. So I'll be beginning with asking you the first question. So my first question for you, how did English spread to your country? What were the major historical influences?
Well, I would say colonialism. The British came and took over and imposed English as an official language to unify like governance and education and trade. And even after our independence, English remained because it was the most like common ground amongst Nigeria's over 500 languages. So unfortunately, we didn't have a choice per se. It was embedded in the system.
All right. So my second question, how has the English language evolved in your country over the years?
Okay. In Nigeria, I would say English has kind of taken on its own like distinct identity. Like we have Nigerian Standard English that exists, which is influenced by local languages and direct translations and unique phrasing. A good example would be like the word severally, which originally means separately, but like Nigerians have kind of like turned it into this adverb for the word several. So that's an interesting quirk. Another thing is we have something called Pidgin English. So that's Pidgin. And it's also widespread. It's kind of like our own form of like a vernacular, almost a broken, well, it's, you know, has been considered broken by so many people, which is something I don't resonate with. But yeah, it's also widespread and used in like casual conversations and media. And the way younger people speak English today, obviously with the internet slang and like global influences, it's just widely different from even like a decade ago.
All right, moving on. What is the current status of the English language in your country? Is it used in formal settings or informal settings?
Well, English is the dominant language in every formal setting: government, education, business, media. It's also spoken widely, informally, like even at home, I speak English with my parents and grandparents as well. That being said, a lot of people, myself included, do mix it with their native languages or with Pidgin. Personally, I don't code switch. I just speak the way I naturally do, and people tend to perceive it as like upper echelon or something. But that's fine with me.
All right. So the next question is, what positive impact have you seen that English creates?
What positive impacts is that the question?
What positive impact have you seen that English creates?
I would say it's like created like an easy communication amongst ethnic groups in Nigeria, because like, you know, with a lot of like diversity, sometimes this concepts we call tribalism does exist, where like people tend to discriminate each other based on their ethnic groups and tribes. Yeah. And like having this kind of common ground, at least it does help for that communication. It also helps Nigerians like thrive internationally. In our entertainment industry, we have Afrobeats, we have Nollywood, we have Nigerian literature. It's managed to reach a global audience partly because of the fact that it's in English, or at least some parts of it are in English. So it's kind of done that as well. And it's also useful for economic mobility, in the sense that speaking English well can open doors in corporate and global spaces.
So basically, English is like bridge to every aspect of life, isn't it?
Yes, precisely.
All right. So, any negative outcomes you have seen English make in your country?
I would say language erosion is a huge one. Unfortunately, I am a big victim to that. My native language is Yoruba, but I do admit that my Yoruba is not as great as it should be. I can hold very basic conversations, but for someone who's lived in that country for so long, who's has like parents who speak it fluently, even at home, my parents, if like for my dad, for example, when I try to speak to him in Yoruba, he responds in English, and I'm like, "You're not helping my case, sir." But yeah, many Nigerians aren't fluent in their native language because English dominates everything from education to public life, and so even in schools, when you're teaching them, like teaching native languages as a subject in schools, you're teaching them with respect to English. So like, oh, this is the word in English, this is what it means in your native language. And I'm like, but that's not how you teach English. So why would you teach a native language that same way? There's also the aspect of classism as well, where people like tend to like judge others based on how polished their English sounds. Like so many people, their best like try at speaking English is pidgin English, and they're always seen as lower class and like lesser than. And like, if you don't, there's been this like rising like making sure we speak in Queen's English and like with the right diction and all that stuff. And people judge others based on how polished their English sounds, equating accents with intelligence. And of course, we can't ignore the colonial baggage that this language has forced upon us, and we're still dependent on.
So you just like look up to the language itself, isn't it? They praise English.
What do you say?
What I mean is that they praise English, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, how did you first learn English grammar, and what methods were most effective for you?
I was addicted to Cartoon Network. I learned it not. I was addicted.
Can you repeat?
I was addicted to TV. I learned it naturally, watching a lot of Cartoon Network and Disney Channel, going to school, reading, and constant exposure. Reading books helped me the most because it showed me how English works in different contexts. And like writing, I would consider myself a very good writer. It's played a role, and obviously because you can't like just learn grammar, by memorizing rules, you have to use it as well. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
All right. So, my last question for you. Do you use any specific regional variations of English that might differ from formal standard English?
Yes, I do. I haven't really paid so much attention to it because, like, to me, they feel normal. And a lot of these variations blend so seamlessly into everyday speech that I don't like have to consciously think about them. That being said, though, Nigerian English does have some like unique phrasing and sentence structures that might differ from standard English, like how we might say, instead of saying turn off the light or switch off the light, we just say off the light, like on the lights, off the lights. Or you could say, like, when referring to yesterday, like someone called you last night. Some people say yesterday night. And the one that I find very interesting is like the word sorry. We say sorry to people for everything, even when it's not our fault, because it's influenced by. In Yoruba, we have two ways we apologize to people. You have bele and emabinu, or mabinu for like informal, and then emabinu is informal. Same thing with bele is epele. That's not important, but basically bele means I empathize with you, right? Well, mabinu means forgive me, like don't be mad at me, So that extended to English, where those both words just mean sorry at the end of the day. So like if someone is coughing, for example, it's not normal to like apologize for that. But like people in Nigeria would apologize, would say sorry, like, oh sorry, I empathize with you, sorry that you're coughing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the ones I can think of right now.
All right. So I guess that's all for the interview. You have answered my 7 questions. So thank you so much for joining me for this my assignment. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Let's proceed to the first question. So, based on the interview's viewpoint, English spread to Nigeria through British colonialism. It was imposed as the official language for governance, education, and trade. Even after Nigeria gained independence, Nigeria retained English as a common language due to its linguistic diversity. Over 500 languages are spoken in the country today. Moving on for question 2. According to the respondent's standpoint, over time, Nigeria has developed its own version of English, known as Nigerian Standard English. This form of English is influenced by local languages, direct translations, and unique phrasing. A great example is the word severally, which originally means separately, but in Nigeria is commonly used to mean several times. Also, another widely spoken variety is Nigerian Pidgin English. While some consider it broken English, many see it as a valid and expressive vernacular. It is widely used in casual conversations, music, and media. Additionally, younger Nigerians are shaping the way English is spoken, blending global internet slang with local expressions, creating a dynamic, ever-changing linguistic landscape. Question 3. English dominates formal settings such as government, education, business, and media. However, in everyday life, many Nigerians switch between English, Pidgin, and native languages, a practice known as code switching. However, according to the respondent, he does not prefer to code switch. For some Nigerians, fluency in English signifies social status, with polished English often linked to higher education and class. Next, in response to the question of the positive impact English creates, English has played a crucial role in uniting Nigeria's diverse ethnic groups, reducing tribal divisions. It had also helped out Nigeria on the global stage, influencing entertainment, literature, and business. Proficiency in English also opened doors to better job opportunities, contributing to economic mobility. Moving on, the dominance of English comes with challenges. Many Nigerians, including the interviewee himself, struggle with fluency in their native languages. The education system prioritizes English, often at the expense of indigenous languages. Moreover, language has become a class marker. Those who can only speak Pidgin are sometimes seen as low class, reinforcing social divisions. The respondent's response to this question is that he learned English through watching TV. Channels like Cartoon Network and Disney Channel is where he was infatuated with cartoons that exposed him to English. He also mentions that he read books and that helped him the most with understanding how English works in different contexts. Additionally, the interview also writes and it plays a significant role in helping him mastering grammar. Nigerian English also has its unique quirks. For example, people say off the light instead of turn off the light, and yesterday night instead of last night. Even the word sorry is used differently. It's often said to express empathy rather than apology. English in Nigeria has a deep-rooted history, introduced and institutionalized. English in Nigeria has a deep-rooted history, introduced and institutionalized through British colonial rule. Today, it dominates formal sectors like government, education, media, and business, making proficiency essential for career and social mobility. With over 500 languages spoken in the country, English serves as a unifying force, bridging communication gaps and reducing tribal divisions. However, this widespread use also led to language erosion, with many Nigerians, including the interviewee, struggling with fluency in their native languages like Yoruba. Media exposure, particularly through channels like Cartoon Network and Disney Channel, has played a significant role in English acquisition. Additionally, Nigerian English has evolved into a distinctive cultural adaptation of standard English, blending local influences, modern slang, and informal expressions shaped by the internet and global trends, reflecting both identity and practicality.
This is my interviewee, Mr. Bernard, who is a 34-year-old man and is from Singapore. All right, good evening. Thank you very much for attending our meeting today. Before we begin, would you please introduce yourself?
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Bernard. I'm a Singaporean who's been fortunate enough to experience the unique blend of cultures and language that make up Singapore. English has played a major role in my life, from my education to my career, and even in my daily conversation with friends and family. Growing up in Singapore, I have seen how English has evolved over the years, especially with the influence of other languages like Malay, Mandarin, Tamil, and as well as local Creole English. I'm excited to share my thoughts today on how English has shaped the country, the impact it has had on our society, and the challenge that's come with using it in both formal and informal contexts. It's definitely a language that holds special place in heart of Singapore, and I look forward to discussing that with you all today.
All right, thank you very much. In this meeting, I will ask you a few questions regarding the English language and its development on your country. So, first and foremost, how did English first spread to your country? Were there any major historical influences that affected it?
English first spread into Singapore through British colonization in 1819, when the Singapore's when Sir Stamford Raffles established a trading post. The British administration used English for governance, rights, and education, making it the dominant language in the official setting.
Okay, for my next question, how has the English language evolved in your country over the years?
Over the years, English in Singapore has evolved to incorporate local influence, giving rise to Singlish, an informal creole with words borrowed from Malay, Hokkien, Tamil, and other languages. Despite this, standard British English remains the official and education normal, though American English influence are growing due to media exposure.
All right then. My next question will be, what is the current status of the English language in your country? Is it more common in formal settings or informal settings?
English is the main working language, and it's used in government, business, and education. It's spoken both formally and informally, though in casual conversation, many Singaporeans mix it with Singlish and other languages.
Okay. Next up, are there any positive impact that you have seen the English language creates in your country?
Positive English has helped Singapore become a global business hub, allowing its people to communicate easily with international partners. It also provides access to global knowledge, education, and job opportunities.
Okay. My next question will be the opposite, where are there any negative impacts the English language has impacted your country?
Negative reaction would be the Singaporeans' struggles in distinguishing between formal English and Singlish, which can lead into miscommunication in the professional settings and usually like in business. In and the dominance of English has contributed to decline in other languages, Malay, Tamil, in younger generation.
Okay. How did you first learn the English grammar, and what methods did you use to learn it?
English grammar is first learned in primary school with an emphasis on structured lessons, grammar drills, and practice exercise. Reading English books and watching English videos are common ways of improving grammar.
All right then. My final question would be, do you use any specific regional variations of the English grammar that might differ from the formal standard English?
Yes, English has unique structure that we use. Its grammatical structure is really different from standard English. For example, dropping subjects and or articles. Like I go market instead I'm going to market, and using particles like la, or to convey different tones. I
All
go to
right.
market la.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bernard. I believe that will be the end of our session today. Thank you very much for participating in this meeting of ours. I hope that you have a great day ahead of you, a great day, great noon, or great night, whatever the time is in your place. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much too.
My first question was, how did the English language first came to Singapore, and were there any major influences? Mr. Bernard responded to me that English was introduced by the British colonization back in 1819 under the British rule. English became the primary language for administration, trade, and education. This early exposure laid the foundation for its continued dominance in modern Singapore's linguistic patterns. My second question was, how has the English language evolved in Singapore? My interviewer mentioned that over time, English in Singapore has evolved under the influence of local languages, leading to the development of Singlish and informal Creole. While British English remains the formal standard, American English has gained traction due to media and globalization that has occurred in the country. My third question would be, what was the current status of the English language in the interviewer's country, and was it more used in formal or informal settings? Mr. Bernard told me that English is now the main working language of Singapore, used in government, education, and business. It is spoken both formally and informally, with the Singlish Creole being the more common in casual conversations. My fourth question was, there were any positive impacts the interviewee has seen that the English language creates? He has said that the English language has positioned Singapore as a global business hub, allowing seamless communication with international partners. The English also provides access to global education, career opportunities, and knowledge. The English also serves as a common language among Singaporeans' ethnically diverse population. My fifth question was, were there any negative impacts that the English language brought to his country? Bernard told me that the widespread use of English has contributed to a decline in native language proficiency among younger generations. The blending of Singlish and Standard English can potentially lead to miscommunication in certain professional settings. My sixth question was, how did the interviewee learn the English language, and were there any effective techniques that he used while learning? He mentioned that English is taught in primary schools through structured lessons, textbooks, and exercises. Many students improve their English through exposure to books, media, and daily interactions with other students and other individuals. My final question was, did the interviewee use any specific regional English grammar that differs from the formal standard version? Mr. Bernard explained that Singlish introduces unique grammatical structures, such as the dropping subjects of articles. Example, I go market instead of I'm going to the market. He also mentioned that the usage of particles like lah, leh, and lor adds distinct tones and meanings. The English language has played a transformative role in shaping Singapore's social, economical, and cultural landscape. Initially introduced during British colonization, English became the country's primary language for governance, education, and commerce. Over time, it has evolved from a colonial tool into a unifying language that bridges communication gaps among Singapore's diverse ethnic communities. However, the arrival of the English language has also brought both negative and positive impacts. On one hand, English proficiency has given Singaporeans a competitive edge in the global economy, facilitated access to higher education, and strengthen the nation's position in both international trade and diplomacy. On the other hand, the widespread use of the English language has contributed to the decline of native language proficiency amongst younger generations, which raises concerns about the loss of cultural heritage. The influence of Singlish, while an important part of Singaporean identity, has also led to challenges in distinguishing formal English from informal speech, particularly in academic and professional settings. In conclusion, English remains a crucial aspect of Singapore's national identity. While its positive impacts regarding economic and academical views are undeniable, it is important to strike a balance between an evolving tool and the preservation of a heritage language.
Hello everyone. Today we're diving into the journey of English in China, how it arrived, evolved, and its impact on society. Before that, let me introduce you guys to my interviewee, Mr. Johnny Chin, also known as Mr. Johnny, born and raised in China and currently furthering his studies at University at Ipoh, Malaysia. Without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, let's start with some story. Okay, how did English first spread to China? What were the major historical influence of it?
Okay, so in China, the English entered China to trade mainly during the 17th and 18th century with British merchants, and however, it's become more widespread after the Opium War in the 19th century when China signed treaties with Western power and leading to more interactions. Later during the late 20th century, China economy reform increased the importance of English for global communications and business.
Oh, that's interesting. For the next question, how has English evolved in China over the years?
So over the year, English has transitions from being a foreigner language using mainly for diplomacy and trade to key subject in education. Today is rarely taught in school and used in business, science, and technology. And the internet and global culture have also influenced how young people use English in daily conversations.
I see. Okay, for the third question, what is the current status of English in China? Is it used more informal or formal settings?
So English is basically used in formal settings such as education, business, and international communications. While it's not an official language, many universities require students to learn English, and multinational company use it for work. And in settings, young people sometimes mix English words into their Chinese conversations, but full conversations in English are rare among the general public.
Ah, I see. Have you noticed any positive impact that English has created in China?
Yeah, definitely. English have helped China connect with the world, and it has opened up opportunity for studying abroad, international business, and cultural exchange. It also allows access to a vast amount of knowledge, especially in science and technology.
Oh, that's great to hear. But have there any negative effect of widespread use of English?
Yes, there are some concerns. Some people worry that the focus on English learning put pressure on students, and it is a mandatory subject in many schools. So other feels that it might overshadow Chinese culture, and then especially among younger generation who are more exposed to Western media.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about grammar. How did you first learn English grammar, and what method were most effective for you?
So I first learned English grammar in school through the textbook and exercise. The more effective method for me were practicing with native speakers and watching English movie with subtitles.
Oh, okay.
How do you use any regional variation of English grammar that might differ from formal standard English?
Yes, sometimes we simplify grammar when speaking English, especially among non-native speakers. For example, some people might omit article like the on mix Chinese sentence structure into the English.
Oh, okay. In China, do people follow British or American English grammar more closely, or is there a mix of both?
It's mostly a mix, but American English is more commonly taught, especially in pronunciations and vocabulary. So, however, British English still influence textbook and formal educations.
Oh, okay. How is English grammar taught in Chinese schools? What challenges do students face when learning it?
So, English grammar is taught through textbooks, exercise, and exams. A common challenge is mastering tense, since Chinese grammar didn't have a same tense system. Many students also struggle with the prepositions and sentence structure.
Okay. Are there any specific structure from Chinese that influence how you use English, leading to common mistakes?
Yes, Chinese don't have verbal conjunctions. Some with past tense form. Also, words ordered in Chinese is different, which sometimes leads to unnatural sentence structure in English.
Oh, okay. That's very insightful. Thank you for sharing your experience and thoughtful on English in China.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you too.
English first entered China in the 17th and 18th centuries through trade, mainly with British merchants. After the Opium Wars in the 19th centuries, treaties with Western powers led to its expansion. By the late 20th century, China's economic reforms by English an essential tool for global business and communication. Over the years, English shifted from being a diplomatic and trade language to a major subject in education. Today, it's widely taught in schools and plays a key role in business, science, and technology. The internet and global culture have also influenced how young people use English daily. So, how is English used in China today? It's mostly seen in formal settings like education and business. Universities require English proficiency, and multinational companies use it for work. However, full English conversations in casual settings are still rare. So, many young people mix English words into their speech. English has significantly benefited China, fostering international connections, creating study opportunities, supporting business expansion, and enabling access to global knowledge, especially in science and technology. However, there are concerns. Some feel that the pressure to learn English is stressful for students. Others worry that Western media exposure might overshadow Chinese culture. This raises questions about cultural preservation and the impact of globalization. People in China learn English through textbooks, exercises, and grammar drills in school. However, most effective methods include practicing with native speakers and watching English language content. English grammar in China often gets simplified. Some learners omit articles like the or mix our Chinese sentence structure into English. This adaptation is a common linguistic evolution among non-native speakers. In China, American English is more commonly taught, especially in pronunciation and vocabulary, while British English influences textbooks and formal education. English grammar is taught through structured lesson, but students often struggle with tense, prepositions, and sentence structures since Chinese grammar follows a different system. For example, Chinese doesn't have verb conjunction, so many learners struggle with past tense form. Also, differences in word order sometimes lead to unnatural sentence structures. English has become an essential part of China's global interactions. Despite its challenges, its role in education, business, and cultural exchange continues to grow. That's all from me. Thanks for watching.
English grammar learning varies across different countries, but common methods include formal education, media exposure, and interactive practice. In expanding circle countries like Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and China, structured lessons and textbooks are the primary sources of grammar learning. However, additional exposure through music, movies, and social media helps reinforce understanding. Interactive methods like conversations and practical applications also play a key role. In outer circle countries like Nigeria and Singapore, English is more embedded in daily life. The Nigerian interviewee emphasized learning grammar through TV, books, and formal educations, while the Singaporean interviewee highlighted structured lessons but also noted English dominance in work and educations. The key difference is that expanding circle learners rely more on structured educations, while outer circle learners benefit from natural language immersions through media and daily interactions. Overall, while formal education provides a foundation, media exposure and interactive learning significantly enhance English grammar acquisitions across both circles.
Let's move on to the second question of our group analysis video. So first, let's examine the expanding circle countries where English is primarily learned as foreign language. And here's what we found. For the similarities, the Indonesian and Chinese speakers often translate directly from their native language, resulting in grammatical difference, while Saudi Arabia speakers face unique challenge with conjunction and tense usage, even structural difference between Arabic and English. For the differences, Indonesian speakers maintain a formal grammar in professional settings but mixed localized expression and code switching in casual speech, while Arabic speakers struggle with chance translation since Arabic structure differs from English. Chinese speakers simplify grammar by omitting article and restructuring sentence to fit their grammar rules. And now let's shift to the outer circle countries where English is used in daily communication and has developed distinct local variations. For the differences, Nigerian English includes unique phrasing such as off the light instead of turn off the light, while Sing English, which is Singapore English, drops subject article leading to expression like I go market instead I'm going to the market. And now let's compare these two groups and identify the key similarities. So both groups show grammatical adaptations influenced by the native language, and the informal speech in both circles tend to deviate from standard English due to cultural and linguistic factors. The differences is in expanding circle countries, variations stem mainly from direct translation and grammatical difference. In outer circle countries, localized dialects such as Nigerian English and Singlish has emerged as distinct linguistic forms.
Let's moving on with the compare and contrast of grammatical differences. So in expanded countries like Indonesia and China, British English grammar is traditionally taught in schools. However, due to the overwhelming influence of American media, American English expressions, pronunciation, and vocabulary are becoming more familiar in daily life. In Saudi Arabia, American English is even more dominant, influenced by strong economic and cultural ties with the United States. British English, on the other hand, is sometimes perceived humorously due to its differences in pronunciation and spelling. In outer circle countries like Nigeria, the influence of both British and American English can be seen. Historically, British English was dominant due to colonial rule, but today, American English expressions and slang are becoming more common. Singapore, another former British colony, still follows British English rules in formal education. However, in everyday conversations, There is a blend of British, American, and localized variations, creating a unique linguistic identity.
When comparing on how individuals from different parts of the world learn the English language, we found some interesting discoveries. For expanding countries, their similarities includes that grammar is primarily taught through textbooks, exercises, and formal assessments. Common challenges faced this way include tense structures, prepositions, and sentence formation, which differs slightly from their native languages. In terms of difference, Indonesian learners struggle with confidence in speaking, while Saudi Arabian learners face difficulties in direct translation due to the structural differences between Arabic and English. Chinese learners find verb conjugations and prepositions particularly challenging due to the absence of such features in their own native language. For outer countries, they only have differences, which being Nigerian learners benefit from reading books to strengthen grammar, while Singaporean learners balance formal grammar education with the influence of Singlish.
Learners from both circles face grammar challenges. Let's hear from some common difficulties. Indonesia interviewee. Speaking English with confidence is tough. Saudi Arabian interviewee. Arabic grammar is different, making translations tricky. Chinese interviewee, verbs, conjunctions, and prepositions are hard for us. Nigerian interviewee, book help reinforce grammar skills. And lastly, Singaporean interviewee, we balance formal English with Singlish in daily life. English plays different roles in different societies. Indonesia interviewee, it's mainly used in education and business. Saudi Arabian interviewee, important in business, tourism, and education, but not in daily conversation. For Chinese interviewee, English emphasized in exams and academic settings. Nigerian interviewee, an official language used in the government, education, and media, but Nigerian pidgin is common in casual speech. For Singaporean interviewee, the primary language in education, government, and daily life, unifying diverse ethnic groups. While English grammar is taught formally worldwide, how it is learned and used varies greatly, whether influenced by native language or shaped by cultural immersions. English continues to evolve uniquely in each country. That's all from me.
Outer Circle countries like Nigeria and Singapore use English widely in education, business, and daily life. Learners here develop fluency through both formal education and everyday interaction, shaping unique English varieties like Nigerian English and Singlish. While this enhances adaptability, it also introduces grammatical deviations from standard English. Balancing fluency with proper grammar remains a challenge, especially in professional and academic settings. Friend circle countries like Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and China learn English mainly through formal education, focusing on grammar with some media exposure. However, native language influence can cause challenges in sentence structure and tense use. Limited real-life practice makes fluency and spoken communication difficult. To enhance proficiency, learners in these regions could benefit from more immersive and interactive learning methods.